Woo! Welcome to the Mark Z Drumcast. I am your host, Mark Zapata. I'm the owner and founder of Mark Z Drums. Across all platforms, Mark Z Drums. Hold on one second. Let me make an adjustment. There we go. Whew! So on a future episode, I will be talking about drumming for fitness because as you can see, you can get quite a workout if you bring up your intensity level and the amount of time you're practicing. If you typically practice 10 to 15 minutes a day, that's great. As long as you're consistently practicing every day, but let's say you expand that to a half an hour a day and bring up the intensity. You are now doing a half an hour of cardio every day, as well as improving your speed, improving your endurance, improving your drumming overall, and basically doing double duty, getting a little bit of cardio in, as well as working on your speed, endurance, your chops, everything like that. Coordination, creativity, anything like that. So anyway, welcome to the Mark Z Drumcast. I missed you guys on Wednesday. I was on vacation. It was hot AF. I was down in Florida in August. Yeah, who knew it would be hot in Florida in August? It was also humid AF. But it was cool, man. I got a little bit of color, as you can see. And it was just really great seeing my dad and my nephew and his family and catching up with my family again. I try to make it down there every few months because my dad is down there. And yeah, so anyway, it was a week. I did a couple of drum casts. I did one pool cast from there. But I was not prepared equipment-wise and stuff like that to really set up for good shots and stuff like that. So if you go back and you look at the last couple of drum casts and pool casts, you will see that it was just kind of like, whatever I could do at the time. I will be prepared next time when I am on the road for whatever reason and I'm doing a drum cast. I will make sure that I'm more prepared. So anyway, I did get some practice time in most days that I was down there. We did not get the drum cast on Wednesday because Wednesday was a day trip for me and my dad. We ended up heading into Tampa. That's where he lives, near the Tampa area. We ended up heading into Tampa and just having a great day, a guy's day out, hanging out, BSing, talking, sharing, getting closer. And it was really, really a great day. So the drum cast did not happen, and I apologize for that. But I am here today. I am here, I am home, I am back. I don't know if you've noticed a couple of changes. We are always trying to get better here at the Mark Z Drumcast. The Mark Z Drum Studio is always evolving, always changing. So here we are. Let me know in the comment section if you like what you see, if you like the quality of the video, if there's anything that you would change. Me, it may be a little bright, but we'll see. Maybe the next show we'll have an adjustment. But always evolving, always changing, always getting better, always striving to improve. So a couple of shows ago, I talked about possibly sharing my origin story. Now, not the Mark Z Drums origin story, because that's a different story, but the Mark Zapata drummer origin story. And the reason why I felt this was a good show to do that is because of my dad. Now, this was actually going to be the subject of Wednesday's Drumcast, but it didn't work out. And I will tell you why it was going to be the subject of Wednesday's Drumcast. was because I spent the day with my dad. I was down in Florida visiting my dad. My dad heavily favors into my origin story as a drummer. And you'll figure that out as I get into the story. But that's the reason why that was going to be the subject of Wednesday's Drumcast. I'm still, listen, man, traveling and being away for 7 days on vacation without a care in the world, not keeping track of days except for maybe, figuring out when I was going to do the show. I come home, full day of teaching yesterday, day off today, which is great because I had a lot of stuff to do. After you come back from a week off, you have a lot of stuff to catch up on. But anyway, what I had talked about a couple of shows ago was doing exactly this. So I'm going to just get right into it because I think that our origin stories are really important because this is where we came from. This is part of what made us, or what makes us, who we are today. And sometimes it informs us to where we're going. So let me just get into it. And I would encourage anybody that sees this video, whether it's live, whether you're on here now, and if you are, I can't really tell at this point, but thank you for jumping on. If you're watching live, welcome. But whenever you watch this video, I would encourage anybody to go ahead into the comment section and tell me your origin story. What got you into playing drums? I'm going to give a little more volume to my microphone here. What got you started playing drums? What was your first memory of drumming? Where did you begin? What put you on the path? Was there a significant event? Did something happen? Did you see somebody, a performer? I want to know your origin story. So in the comment section below, go ahead and put it down there. Also, all my socials are ramping up. Mark Z Drums across all socials. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I have a Patreon, which I'm still working on. I haven't decided to roll it out yet. If you wanted to check out the Patreon, go ahead to Mark Z Drums on Patreon. It'll be there. You'll have one tier option, right? The entry-level tier option, which will give you not only the chance to support me in what I'm doing, and that is so greatly appreciated, but also you will get access to my drum cover videos before they go out to the world. Okay, so you'll get 24-hour access, early access to any drum cover videos I do and any instructional videos I do. You will also, as a Patreon member, be able to request a drum cover from me, which I will also upload to the Patreon before I share it with anybody else, at least 24 hours. And that will be your exclusive video, right? So go ahead on there on my Patreon, go check it out, take a look. It will be growing, I promise you that. We will be adding tiers with a lot more cool stuff, but just as an entry level into the whole thing, and the way I'd love to show my appreciation is just that. Early access to whatever videos I post up, instructional and drum covers, the ability to request a drum cover, as well as just supporting me, which is greatly appreciated. And I will have a Discord server. So the Discord server will be accessible to any members. And then we could all chat. You could chat with me. We could all talk. We could share ideas. We could support each other on the Patreon. Okay. Also, right here on YouTube, my channel, Mark Z Drums on YouTube, where if you were curious about where I started from, you can go back and you can look at my old videos. You can see concerts I've gone to. You can see concerts I've played in, instructional videos, drum covers, all kinds of cool stuff that I share on my YouTube channel. But as well as the Mark Z Drumcast, which is a pretty new development in my career, and the online drumming course that I am currently working on right now, which, if you stay tuned, hit the notification bell, like this video, subscribe to my channel, you will know when that drum course is available and what modules will be coming out first as we roll this thing out. And it will be great. I promise you that. Anyway, enough promoting myself. Like I said, Mark Z Drums across all social platforms. Like, subscribe, and follow everything I do. That would be awesome. So, my origin story. I was 7 years old, around 7 years old, and my family, my parents and I, because my siblings were already probably out of the house by then. I have older siblings. Anyway, I'm 7 years old. My family goes on a trip to California. My parents and I were visiting family friends. And one night after dinner, I was looking for something to do. I was the only kid in the house. I was bored. I was looking for something to play with. So as all the adults were in the kitchen having coffee after dinner, I was in one of the kids' bedrooms. Now, I guess the kids were away or something like that. In one of the kids' bedrooms, I open the closet, again, looking for something to play with, and I see some shiny stuff in this closet, and I pull it out into the middle of the bedroom, and I pull out everything that looks like it fits together. And it turns out to be a drum set. It's a 3-piece, swirly pearl white finish drum set, just a kick, a snare, a tom-tom, maybe a floor tom, so it could have been a 4-piece. And it had 3 rototoms, I remember. And so I remember being able to put the tom-tom on the mount on the bass drum, and I remember figuring out how to put the rototoms on the stand. And I found some drumsticks, and I started hitting the rototoms. I remember loving how the rototom sounded. And of course, next thing you know, all the adults are in the bedroom door going, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know, I'm just playing." And so what ended up happening was that my dad bought that drum set from the people we were visiting and had it shipped back to New York, where we were living at the time. And that became my first drum set, set up in the corner of my bedroom. And that became my first drum set. That's how I began to teach myself how to play drums. And my dad knew that I was interested because I did teach myself in the beginning to play drums. I listened to records, and I tried to figure out how to play what I was hearing on my own drums. And then eventually my dad signed me up for lessons at a local music store, which in a beautiful twist of fate, I ended up teaching at a few years back. The same store owned by the same family that I began learning drums at, I also taught lessons at. Many, many years later. The family, like I said, it still was in the family. Until very recently, actually, it was purchased by a bigger company. But all those years, that music store was there, and I took lessons when I was a kid, and I taught there just a couple of years back. And I'm really grateful that I got to teach there while the family still owned the store. And I'm pretty sure, this is going to sound funny, but I'm pretty sure I learned on the same exact drum set that I was teaching on just a couple of years ago. This was an old drum set. I've actually never seen a drum set this old before. I've never seen a drum set make it to that age. Now, I have a drum set that could be 30 plus years old. My first drum set that I bought for myself, Tama Imperial Star. It's set up in my band rehearsal room, and I still use it. It still sounds great. It's all in one piece. But this particular drum set could have been upwards of 50 plus years old. That would track. And, it was just a great feeling and a great kind of full circle moment, because in the room was a picture of the man that taught me drums when I was 7. He owned the school before he passed away. But it was really great to see him, to see his picture in there, and for me to be teaching in that same room, because that's probably the room that I learned in as well. It was probably been the drum room for all those years, because it was definitely the drum set. So anyway, getting back to my origin, those drums that my dad had shipped from California to New York, I think he paid, I forget what he paid for them. $75 or something like that, or that was, I don't know what that was. But yeah, So, I often thank my father, um, because really, without him making that decision, without him recognizing that there was an interest there for me, and maybe he saw how happy I was hitting those drums. I didn't know at the time. He couldn't have known at the time. But he said, you know what? If he likes it, let's see what happens, right? And that's what I encourage all of my students, my clients, and my students' parents to do is give it a shot, see what happens. You never know how it's going to turn out. So that's why I think origin stories are super important. And I love listening to interviews with drummers that I admire, drummers that have accomplished in drumming, or people that have just been drumming for a while. It doesn't really matter what you've accomplished, right? If you've been a drummer for a long time and you love drumming and it makes you happy, I love to hear those people tell their stories. I was just watching Count Me In on Netflix recently, and they were talking and interviewing some contemporary drummers, some older contemporary drummers, some younger contemporary drummers, and they talked about their influences and a lot of the people that are no longer with us that were influential in drumming, mostly in rock and roll. And the really cool part about that documentary was some of them had footage of them opening up their very first drum set, like in one big box, the little kiddie drum sets. Or when they're teenagers and they have a drum set up in their room, like I did when I was 7 or 8, Really, really cool to see the beginnings and to hear these people talk about, I used to pull the pots and pans out of my mother's cabinets, and I used to bang on them, and I used to get in trouble all the time. Like stuff like that. I used to dent my mom's pots because I used to hit them with whatever I found. And like that's the thing about the origin story, right? I have a friend of mine whose brother is an accomplished musician with a studio in his home, and he recently had children, and she will send me videos of the children at 2 years old with like little toy drum sets, just banging away, playing, or on different things around the house, just playing drums and banging away. And then, over the last couple of years, seeing these children develop and still loving to play the drums. It's really, really cool thing. So if you don't want to leave a comment about your origin story, I would love to read it. At least think about your origin story. Think about what got you started. Think about what was the moment that you knew. Did you always tap on stuff when you were young? Did you, again, see somebody play drums live or see something on TV that made you go, wow, I want to do that? It's really cool to think about. So I often thank my dad for making that decision and then supporting me the whole time, because once I got that drum set and I was in there playing all the time, by the way, my bedroom was next to my grandma's bedroom, who was living with us at the time. And she would sometimes say to me, aren't you going to practice today? And so if that's not a supportive household, I don't know what is. Never anything about quiet down, it's too late, whatever. I was just allowed to play whenever and as long as I wanted to play my drums. And I'll never forget that. And I thank my grandma too for being encouraging and for being supportive of me as a kid playing drums. Well, fast forward, my dad bought me my first Slingerland drum set. I remember it was a 5-piece, snare, floor, kick, and 2 toms, all concert toms, by the way, no bottom heads on these drums. And that was my first brand new drum set. I used to take pieces of drums, right? I had the original drum set that I had the new drum set that my dad got me, and I would take the drums and combine them. I would make a double bass kit, and then I would add the rack toms. I remember having an old snare drum without a bottom head as another tom somewhere mounted somewhere. I used to like to tinker around, and I was influenced also by what I saw on TV. I grew up in the 80s. By the time I was old enough to start really experimenting with my drums was the 80s, and I was into rock and roll, and I remember watching Van Halen videos and watching Alex Van Halen play on these crazy 4 kick drum kits and with the stripes and the numbers on them and stuff like that. And I put stripes on my drums because I had a black set and I had a white set. So I took some black stripes, black tape and white tape, and I striped all the drums, and all of a sudden they all looked the same. I put numbers on my drums as well. So these are the fun times that I had growing up, experimenting with my drum configuration, experimenting with tuning, taking the bottom heads off and putting them back on, all kinds of things like that. Just like being influenced by what I saw on music videos and things like that, and by what I heard. So it was an incredibly fun time for me. And then by the time I got to be about 17 years old, I remember going away for the summer, working, and living with my sister and my brother-in-law, and working over the summer. And I was able to save up for my own very first double bass drum kit. This was the Tama Imperial Star that I talked about. This was sometime in the 80s. And I remember buying let me see, I think it was one floor tom. So it was a 5-piece Tama Imperial Star drum set. And then by that time I was playing in bands and playing around live shows and things like that. And then I started paying off a second bass drum. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, as a birthday gift, I don't remember what birthday it was for me, as a birthday gift, she went down and paid off the remainder of the balance of my second bass drum. And at a big party we were having with my band and everything, she had it under a big tarp or whatever, and I pulled the tarp off, and there was my brand new Tama Imperial Star bass drum that I had been paying off and waiting for. So it was a great moment. So all of these moments, as we go through and we think about our history and our past in drumming, these significant moments really do illustrate our passion for what we're doing or what we were doing. And at a young age, I have a ton of students now, ranging from 3 or 4 all the way to adulthood and older aged people. But I see the passion in a lot of my students that were that are 7 years old and coming through, and my older teenage students, 13, 14 through 17 or so. And I could see their passion for what they're doing and how much they love playing drums. A lot of them are in school bands, not public school bands, but in the music schools that I teach at, they're in bands in those situations, and they just love showing up for rehearsal, playing music, having that camaraderie, having that fun. I also direct student bands. So it's really cool to see that passion that I had when I was young in my current students today. So yeah, send me some origin stories. Tell me how you used to kind of express your love of drumming even before you had a drum set. I've done a couple of shows, Drumcasts, where I touched on playing drums without a drum set. I have a number of students that are coming in for the first time having never played drums, do not have drum sets, and I teach them how to progress and advance in their drumming without a drum set, without drumsticks sometimes. So we find a way, to do what we love to do. And then eventually it comes together. As we get a little bit older, we have a little more agency in our lives. We're able to work and buy things for ourselves. That's when we really have that control. But up until then, we're just kind of like expressing that love of drumming, whether you're tapping your foot to the turn signal in the car, or tapping your hands to songs you're hearing on the radio, or you're in school and you're tapping and the teacher's telling you to stop, but you're tapping your pencils and pens, or just tapping on the desk. That's how it starts to come out in us, right? Drumming is very tribal. So it starts to come out in different ways. And then maybe our parents or our teachers or friends or something, they start to recognize, and we start to get encouraged, and we start to get supported in that. So yeah, that is my origin story. From 17 years old, I started playing in rock bands, and I played all New York, Brooklyn, Queens, tri-state area, and I really haven't stopped playing drums or playing bands since then. I took some time off when I fell in love and I got married and I had kids and I bought a house. Excuse me, I bought a house and I had a good job. I did stop playing for a number of years before a good friend of mine that I played music with in high school called me up one day and said, "Hey man, I'm playing in this band. I have this situation. It's an original project and we need a drummer. Do you want to do it?" And I did not hesitate. I said yes. But I had to realize that I was rusty. I hadn't played, and I certainly hadn't played in a band in a number of years. But we started rehearsing. I started to knock the rust off. And I remember my first live show, after coming back from a break, I must have dropped 25 drumsticks because my hands were not working. I was so nervous. But thankfully, I never had nerves after that. After that first initial gig we played, and I didn't look back either because that band ended. I continued with some other people, formed a project that lasted about 12 years after that. Went through a couple of personnel changes, then got into some other projects, worked with other bands, started touring the US, ended up touring Europe, and it just grew from there. So now I've been teaching for about 10 years. I will one day tell you the origin story of Mark Z Drums. And I have a full roster of students and a few student bands that I direct. And I couldn't be happier about the direction my life has taken. And even going all the way back to 7 years old when I started playing drums, how many possibilities that opened up for me. And how many amazing, wonderful times I've experienced being a drummer, playing in bands, touring, rehearsing, writing music, recording music, everything. And now teaching. It's just been incredible how the story keeps unfolding. So I want to thank you all for hanging in this far. If you made it to the end of this video, that's awesome. I hope what I had to say today was interesting and fun for you to hear. I would love to hear your origin stories in the comment sections below. And again, stay tuned for my drumming course that will be coming out very, very soon. And keep tuning in to the Mark Z Drumcast. Like I said, we keep trying to improve over here. We keep trying to get better and evolve and bring you more interesting content. I'm working on a couple of drum covers right now. My vacation kind of derailed my efforts a little bit, but I'm working on a couple of things. Tom Sawyer by Rush, where I will do the cover. I will talk a little bit about the song and the man behind the drums on that song, Neil Peart, who left us too soon. Also, Gray Street by the Dave Matthews Band. That was another request that came in. I'm trying to get through these requests. It is challenging at times because sometimes I get derailed by this or that, or by my own desire to play certain songs and do covers of certain songs. The list is growing, so I am getting to work. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching the Mark Z Drumcast. And again, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. Check out my other socials if you're interested. And yeah, I will catch you next